background and a new Bostonian type of person. Today's headline is When You Are Depleted, when it's frustrating and it's confronting to fight against what seems to be fairly intractable and even increasing problems. So I'm in a district where you can wear masks to school. Masks are compulsory, and I'm happy that my children will be afforded that degree of protection. I would feel more comfortable if the pandemic had been squashed because there had been widespread uptake of a vaccine and there wasn't a religious extremist and a culture war extremist effort to sabotage the end of the pandemic, to sabotage the process of ending the pandemic. So I'm frustrated by that sabotage, but I did see someone make a hopeful comment that vaccination rates are increasing, that perhaps the news is getting out about the difficulties facing healthcare workers, particularly in Trump-dominant states or Trump-influenced states where, for example, Governor Abbott is banning vaccine mandates and he has banned mask mandates. And there's that the biggest health disinformation person, oh, did I lose connection? The biggest health disinformation spreader, oops. Hi, Peter, and hi, Pablo. Nice to see you both. I'm just wondering if I can unmute you. What I think I've got you guys is a rogue moderator, somebody who's mad at me because long story, but he wanted to forbid me from working with someone and we had a falling out, and he's still a moderator. I don't know how to go into the system and make him not a moderator anymore. So I think he's muting people who comment on my broadcast, and it's a little bit frustrating. So you were muted. I had to globally unhide you, Peter. So I'm hoping that I can fix that at some point. But if not, I'll still. Oh, Pablo has a suggestion. Okay. I'll write that down. Thank you so much. Because I have to do something about that. Okay. Go to your moderation settings. Okay, because when I click on settings, I see there's probably something, but I see comment moderation less strict to most strict. And there must be something I'm missing. Maybe it's under more. No, that feels like local device settings. Anyway, I'll work on that and I might liaise with somebody later. Okay. I'm really enjoying Boston suburb life. I do have a neighbor who is very Trump. And this has been my first in real life interactions with trolls. This is a real life person as opposed to internet. He's a neighbor and he's very friendly to my kids, and his kids are very friendly to my children, and they have a pool and they invited us to use it whenever we like. And that's very emotional for me because I've always recommended or at times I've recommended using one of the only strategies you can counter rising fascism with or rising contrarianism with, and that is social death, meaning don't smile at people who are going off the rails with their culture war cudgels because they are disadvantaging everybody and they're in fact stealing freedom from everybody else with their insistence on centering their own freedoms. And and their loyalty to certain narratives that they've encountered. So even if they've just unfortunately inadvertently encountered damaging narratives, their choice of adopting those narratives, Trump's right, COVID's been overhyped, masking is child abuse, vaccination is oppression, and it's all like Nazi Germany, those narratives have been subsumed into their identity, and they are dangerous, and they behave in dangerous ways. Bob's here and Phil's here. Hello, Bob and Phil. Hi, Dara. Do you want your colouring in pens? Because I put them just over there. You want Mama? Love you, baby. I'm sorry it took me so long to start my broadcast. I was just reading things and trying to work through some despondent feelings because it's, bless what you want. Oh, you want to really play? Okay, well, let me say goodbye to the broadcast. I'll quickly, can I have 5 minutes to tell them what I really wanted to get through in my broadcast, Baba? 2 minutes? Thank you.
Or 3.
Could you go turn off the TV? 3 minutes. Thank you so much.
But if no TV, then 2.
Settings moderation. Well, the general site settings. Okay.
Yes, TV, then
yes,
5 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, yes, TV, then 5 minutes. Okay. Hello, zippity don't. General site settings.
Okay, so TV? No TV.
So, yes. I was also worried that it might be a bad influence on the children being close to a Trumpy family because my daughter was she was laughing at this sticker that said, "Make liberals cry again, Trump 2020.
Well, I was just laughing.
Why were you laughing?
It was kind of funny because it was just kind of funny. I don't know why.
I know, but that's what I was a bit worried about. I was worried that maybe Trump people think it's funny to make other people cry, and I was worried that you would start to think that was funny too. And I didn't really want that for you, Baba, because you're normally so kind. I know. You're not a Donald Trump fan? No, Baba. High five. High five, baby. I love you.
Well, she's not high-fiving that. She's becoming
no, she's... Can you go hang out with your brother for the 5 minutes, Bobby? Otherwise, they don't count. You can't give me 5 minutes if you don't let me actually share. Okay, so I was looking also at a report on Iowa and a state that bans making masks mandatory. I note that people sometimes get caught up in the language, and instead of saying the parents are against the mask mandate bans, they start to just say the parents are against the mask mandate, even when they're describing a court case of parents challenging a Trumpy governor who has said they ban mask mandates and are trying to run on a culture war platform of we center freedom, we prioritize the freedom of individual choice. We want parents to be able to choose whether or not they can pack peanut butter sandwiches for their children to school. We want parents to be able to choose whether or not they have children wearing seatbelts. That's not usually how it works because people accept some level of bureaucratic intervention that improves outcomes for individuals and the state. It might be an inconvenience to buckle up your children, but it's better to have safe children, and it's better for the hospital system of a state as well to not have to deal with the increased rate of injuries to children when seatbelts aren't mandated. So yes, there's all sorts of initiatives of employers requiring vaccines. I think Delta is slapping its employees with a $200 penalty that they have to pay if they are unvaccinated by a certain date. Oh yes, Bob has noticed the good news about the all-girls Afghan robotics team that was reported on a lot when they entered a robotics competition, and so now exist in people's hearts and their sympathies around the world. So those they've all been offered full scholarships, says the Oklahoma mum that helped them escape. So that's great. And there is a very high rate of evacuation from Afghanistan. I believe approximately 10,000 people are being evacuated a day, which is a news angle that's not necessarily capturing the imagination of the mainstream media, who seem compelled on some level to equalize the degree of negative reporting to the Trump administration. So the Trump administration was full of legitimate scandals. The scandal of ending a highly unpopular war in Afghanistan that continued for 20 years at great expense to the lives of people in Afghanistan, because there was a body count, and also cost the American taxpayer at a collective sense, at a collective level, $500 million a day, all the while occurring in a bubbled reality in which it was always presented as tenable, as a nation-building exercise, when really the gulf between American soldiers and the fledgling democracy was greater than the gulf between moderate citizens of Afghanistan and who are Islamic mostly in faith, and the Islamic extremists of the Taliban. So even though there's a gulf there, and the Taliban are friendly incubators of terrorism and not prone to democratic governance or anything like that, it's still a smaller gulf for the people of Afghanistan, and it was hard to sustain the nation-building fiction, or the fiction that America could achieve a nation-building outcome if it just spent more money, if it just spent the lives of more service members, American service members, or service members from any of the other, 16 countries that have participated in initially anti-terrorism efforts, but subsequently nation-building efforts. So that nation cannot stand. It is tragic to watch. It's always been a joke in popular culture that some people in America can't easily accept, or their American exceptionalism makes it difficult for them to accept when America has effectively lost a war. So a plot driver of a movie called A Fish Called Wanda was that Kevin Kline's character could be taunted very easily by people who said to him, America lost the war in Vietnam. And he would say, America didn't lose, America tied. We tied. Disney cruises in Florida are requiring vaccines. That is excellent news, Bob. And also the Polish javelin medal silver medalist auctioned her medal to raise money for a child who needed open heart surgery, and not her own child, but somebody else's child. And the winning bidder was a Polish supermarket chain, who then also said, we won the bid, but she can keep her medal, which is great. They've made a prudent investment in terms of the good publicity for that action, and the child presumably can now get the heart surgery they require. In Australia, in sad news, it was being reported that for children with heart defects, babies with heart problems lost their lives because of COVID travel restrictions, which seems unusual because there's usually medical exemptions granted for emergencies, but evidently in this case, perhaps the exemptions weren't processed in a timely fashion. But yes, four babies died. And this Trump person I communicate with on Twitter tagged me in this story, like, look, 4 babies have died. And I wanted to say, so many children have been hospitalized in the United States as a consequence of this resurgent pandemic, where there's a surge, particularly amongst unvaccinated people like you, sir, who are endangering children under 12 who cannot yet be vaccinated. And I want very much to characterize this as theft, because all of the effort and energy that people have put into staying safe during this pandemic, it is all being undermined, and all their sacrifices the value of it is being eroded and stolen from them by people who choose to listen to a con artist still, who choose to selfishly continue the con rather than admit that they were marks all along and that they were fooled by the great orange grifter. actually, I might call him the great orange grifter, because that is his particular talent, and his ability to market himself as a billionaire was his principal source of revenue for decades. He might have traded in property, but he often went bankrupt, and so personally profited from debts that he didn't repay, from borrowing billions of dollars of money from American banks and then paying nothing back when those businesses went belly up because of his poor business skills. But he still understood that every news headline increased his personal profile and thus attracted an increased number of small investors to him. And he then used that investment money to misrepresent it as profit from his businesses. It wasn't profit from his businesses, it was just profit from his grift of marketing himself as a successful billionaire. So all of the Republicans that now try to pander to Trump loyalists and QAnon fanatics by saying, yes, we value freedom over public health. They are also valuing individual freedoms to choose anti-vaccine propaganda over the economy as well, because economies begin to crater when hospitals begin to fill, begin to be so stretched that people can't get treatment. They can't get their elective surgeries done. And elective surgeries aren't just like cosmetic surgery. Elective surgeries are surgeries that aren't immediately life and death. So surgeries to relieve pain, surgeries to help with a herniated disc, surgeries to help a pregnant woman having, well, that might be life and death, a pregnant woman having complications. But there's so many people that will struggle to be serviced by a healthcare system in crisis that is under an effectively denial of service attack from millions of Trump supporters who still won't do the right thing, who won't accept that it's a reduction of risk, a reduction of transmission, and a reduction of harm if you take a vaccine, even if that vaccine isn't perfect, even if the vaccine's efficacy is being undermined by the prevalence of COVID amongst the unvaccinated. That even if you can still contract or transmit COVID with a vaccine, the likelihood is lower, and the likelihood that you will be hospitalized or die is lower. The likelihood that your family will experience bankruptcy or homelessness is lower. And the likelihood that your family will become a net cost to the state is lower. So they're putting all of these pressures on the American system, and their bodies have become weaponized for a Republican agenda of damaging America because a Democrat is in charge at the federal level, hurting the American economy, hurting American hospital systems, hurting American people, and hurting American children. Oh, Knowledge is here and says hello from Lynchburg City. So sorry I couldn't see your comments. Yes, great to see you again. Now, what I might do is just try a little bit longer. My children have mercifully got excited about a television show and have abandoned their gift, so I might have a moment longer. This is what I wanted to show people from Iowa, where Iowa students are back in class today. And the largest school district there is a bit of a Democratic stronghold. So they're being at least honest and calling the state policy, which bans mask mandates, they're calling it a pro-COVID policy. And that's what it is. It's a pro-COVID.
Students in Iowa's largest school district back in class today, and masks are not required. Iowa is one of 8 states with a ban on making masks mandatory for students. The Des Moines School District telling NBC News, quote, Iowa's pandemic policies can most polite. Barrett is outside.
Sorry.
Today, masks are not required. Iowa is one of 8 states with a ban on making masks mandatory for students. The Des Moines School District telling NBC News, quote, Iowa's pandemic policies can most politely be called pro-COVID. NBC Barrett in Des Moines. There's now correspondent Maura Bennett School, which is so Maura, last round until virtually back to the classroom. So how's the district handling the state's mask mandate ban now?
Well, Allison, the difference between this year and last year is that mask mandate ban was made into law just before the end of the last school year. And so that makes it more difficult for the
Can you guys hear
district to push back. As a pushback and enact a mask mandate like we've seen in states like Texas and Florida is because when they did that virtual learning push against express authorization from the governor, he actually had his license threatened. He had to sit before a hearing and almost lost his job as an educator. And so he's trying to play ball with the state, but there's a clean divide between what the state's looking for and schools like the Des Moines School District as kids go back to school this week, Allison.
So, Maura, what are you hearing from parents in the district there? Where are they falling on this whole mask thing?
Democrats in a largely Republican state. And so that's what parents are pointing out is that Governor Reynolds is trying to make this a political ban during the health and safety of the kid. Thomas yesterday, he's a father at the age of 12. They cannot be vaccinated, but they're going back to school this week because he tried homes at the beginning of the pandemic too much and really could. But it's just take a look and so he's for the health and safety.
We need masks to slow the spread. People have decided to make it a culture war issue instead of a public, and then promote this because they think it's going to win primaries and then general elections. But at what cost? I think the cost is pretty disappointing. Sick children, when we see stuff clear at this point, it's schools have to address it. It's unfortunately the measure of allergies. Like, you can do things that take a little bit of effort. The kids are often better about keeping their masks on than the adults are.
Now,
So yes, peanut allergy was his peanut allergy was his analogy there. I'd also liken it to playing Russian roulette, that Republicans are using their own bodies to play Russian roulette with, but also the bodies of children and other people, even vaccinated people, because the high transmissibility of the Delta variant means there are breakthrough cases. There are more breakthrough cases because of this variant. I've got a comment from a Twitch user that says, "Hello, Dav, do you think the US should pull out their other overseas locations like blah, 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 given that one of the reasons for withdrawing from Afghanistan was cost?" No, I think you're stretching to even make that argument to me, because there is an active war in Afghanistan. There is a war against the Taliban. There was a truce called on by Trump, who effectively surrendered Afghanistan to the Taliban in 2020 and was cheered for it at the time because it was understood that the public were not supportive of a 20 war. So US Bailey in a military, not actively conflict. So your analogy falls down very heavily in that comparison. But $500 million a day is a lot, but the cost of American lives is even more costly because people see and hear, even if they've fallen off the radar of mainstream media, understand that there were service members who signed up to defend their country, or who perhaps signed up because the military offers a way out of very constrained personal financial circumstances and offers people opportunities. So it's, and it offers freedom from student debt. So it's often an avenue that people pursue, not all nationalism of duress. Now, some people are grateful that they've gone to the military, but people don't tend to be grateful for being killed in a military conflict that is ultimately a fruitless endeavor, a project to build a nation in a nation where a large part of the hostile to that nation build project. Thanks for the comment. It was a very project. So for your, it was a bit of distraction from what we were talking about or listening to. We were listening to a father of 4 children who can be vaccinated at present, who's tried homeschooling and says, look, it should be safe for children to go to school, but the governor and other Republicans are actively sabotaging the prospects for their children to stay, their children's well-being, for their children to stay COVID-free. And instead there are classes and school closing and there's a lot of quarantining because of to look at internet disinformation and race information and also disinformation that says as if even that is acceptable. So my next door neighbor thinks COVID doesn't really exist, but if it does, it's just doctors have inflated COVID cases for profit somehow, ignoring truth. Yes, baby, you're right. It has been more than 5 minutes. Mummy will say goodbye. Should we wave goodbye to everyone? Thank you. Hello, the way. I have to press stop. Oopsie. Stop presenting.
It's a kitty watch.
Yeah, I got it for you. It's just a little watch.
And Mommy.
You want us to share it? I've got my watch. All right, so we're going to say goodbye. So thank you for listening. Don't forget to keep it up because disinformation is currently yelling all over the internet. And it's up to decent people with access to good quality information to raise their voices and not be shy and just leave it to the experts. We have to help amplify the voices of experts. We have to amplify support for Joe Biden in the context of a mainstream media that seeks to burnish their own reputations for fairness by mischaracterizing fairness as balance. Getting hysterical about all the Trump scandals, but also getting hysterical about a confected scandal of pretending that Biden's done the wrong thing to end an unpopular and potentially highly unethical 20-year war in Afghanistan and to work very hard on evacuating all the people from Afghanistan without loss of life. So see you later. Bye, Bob. Thank you for your good news stories. Bye, Knowledge. Thank you for your presence as well. Always lovely to see you and take care. Have a good week. I'll go hang out with this little one.